This conference will now be recorded.
Well, hi, friends, and a little information for you. We had a good meeting this morning here in Finland. Unfortunately, it was not recorded, or some tiny little bit of it was recorded, about 12 seconds, perhaps. So, although this is not my favorite thing, I'm going to repeat some of what I said. It will, of course, be a different program, but I'll be able to remember some things. This is our um, Science of Triangles recording. So let me begin. Now, I'm going to go through, there we go. I always begin these days with this second of the Great Invocations. Now, we might say, well, the election is over. Why bother with that? Everything is decided. But there is a kind of mass delusion going on where there really is an attempt to steal the election from the Blues. The Martian Reds are attempting to, without foundation, steal this election and will resort to all manner of chicanery through the courts, and who knows by what other means, to pretend that the Blues did not win the election, even though over 76 million votes have now come to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. This has a significance for us. It's not just a question of what happens in the United States, not at all. It is a question of what happens to democracy on a worldwide basis. There are groups, there are dictatorially inclined people who would like nothing better than to see the election results reversed. This we must fight. There are also those who are democratically inclined that would be weakened if for any reason the election results were reversed. And apparently there's no real basis. I was just reading that a Pennsylvania letter carrier who attested to the fact that ballots were being backdated so that late ballots were made to seem as if they were on time, just admitted that he had lied. And then he recanted, he took back his statement and signed an affidavit to confirm that his recantation was legitimate. That's the kind of nonsense that we see, and that's the kind of evidence that is being pulled out, fallacious evidence, if any at all. So what we're trying to do is to continue to be en rapport with these higher energies of the Lords of Liberation, Liberty, Equality, Fraternity, and with the Christ, the great Lord, the Savior, the teacher, the great psychologist of humanity, the rider from the secret place, who is the Kalki avatar, we are attempting to invoke him and his presence, the true Christ's spirit, the spirit of altruism, the spirit of truth. He has said that the truth will set us free. And right now, following the example of their mendacious, the word means lying, mendacious leader, many, many Republicans, the party representing the Martian Red, and the divisions of the Martian Red, are falling into line behind him, claiming that in the most deluded manner, that there will be a smooth transition into a second term for Donald Trump, whose rather infantile psychology, or at least grossly immature, cannot accept the fact that he simply lost because of his manner, his lies, his incompetence, many reasons that put his narcissistic self at the center of the universe, regardless of how many people may die from the COVID. So we must remain vigilant during the coming days and weeks, because an all-out effort will be made to thwart the just and rightful results of this election. And there will be a siding with the forces of obstruction on the part of those who represent the Martian Red. Somehow it's terribly appropriately symbolic that we have a division between what we call red and blue states. One represents the heart center, that's the blue, and probably really the indigo, and the other represents the solar plexus and all of the glamorous tendencies churned out in that illusory plane, the astral plane. So internally, we who strive to be members of the new group of world servers, and maybe some of us who actually are, must adhere to a rigorous plan of vigilance, disciplined vigilance, so that at least we can put into the thought atmosphere that which is true, and which will eventually result in the emergence of the good, the beautiful, and the true, in line with the divine plan. That's how serious this is. Now, it has been thought up to this point that the results of the election are so very clear and unequivocal that basically the election results, the legitimate election results, are not in danger. And that is, for the most part, the way most thinking people have deemed the trajectory of things at present. The tendency is towards the sustaining of the results, but all kinds of machinations, whether they are judicial or military, are on the table. In the case of the group that represents the divisive Martian Red. And this must be countered esoterically and internally by those who care enough, by those who are vigilant, by those who will not accept literally the stealing of the election. You know, it's so interesting how projection works. And the loudest projectors, in this case, the members of the Republican Party by and large, are screaming out what they themselves are guilty of. Lately, the psychological word projection has been called self-owning or a self-own. In other words, the thing that they say of others is exactly true of themselves. And they have been complaining about a stolen election from the very first with no basis, no accurate evidential basis. They will continue to do this, and there are many reasons why they will. There is a runoff coming in Georgia to determine the direction of the Senate, without which the Blues will have a much more difficult time restoring some level of sanity to this country. Now, the idea is if you keep your base all riled up, there will be more votes for the Reds when it comes time for those two runoffs in the state of Georgia. So it's all calculated. You cannot, you know, when the first ray is operative, you cannot remove the presence of the third ray of manipulation, which is itself a great glamour. And inside the Senate, there is so much of that going on that there would be true love and respect and cooperation under the second ray is not a foregone conclusion. As a matter of fact, it is not likely. As much as Joe Biden, who has a powerful fourth ray and second ray, he's very strong on the 246 line. As much as he would like to restore this kind of cooperative civility between opposing parties, between opponents whom he insists are not to be considered enemies. So that's a little bit of background, just as I gave this morning in a 12-second program. But let us then together say and think and earnestly concentrate upon Great Invocation number 2. Let the Lords of Liberation issue forth. Let them bring succor to the sons of men. Let the rider from the secret place come forth, and coming save. Come forth, O Mighty One. Let the souls of men awaken to the light, and may they stand with massed intent. Let the fiat of the Lord go forth. The end of woe has come. Come forth, O Mighty One. The hour of service of the saving force has now arrived. Let it be spread abroad, O Mighty One. Let love, let light and love and power and death fulfill the purpose of the coming one. The will to save is here. The love to carry forth the work is widely spread abroad. The active aid of all who know the truth is also here. Come forth, O Mighty One, and blend these three. Construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end. It is so powerful. And it is something that we have to keep in mind on a daily basis for the next days and weeks until the relative security of the inauguration day is upon us. This glamorous delusion is along the line of evil and has a purely egotistical motive. It is not a motive that is based upon true patriotism, true citizenship, whether in the United States or citizenship in the international collection of nations, a kind of citizenship within the soul of humanity. None of that is the operative motive. So let us keep this in mind as we attempt to support the truth, and with it the emergence of the beautiful and the good. The lines are clearly drawn now. Sometimes the lines between good and evil are so sinuous as to be indecipherable. And Master Moria has said to the question, why don't you simply strike down the evildoers? He said, well, you're too close to them. We would harm you if we did. So that gives us pause to reflect, does it not? Master DK said the battle for democracy would be fought out within the United States. It is that peculiar form of government which Churchill said was the worst form of government except for all the others. It's not a cut and dried and easy form of government to deal with. It's a little, what you might call messy. It's a little blurred. So much has to be taken into consideration. But except it's not so bad when you consider it too against all the other forms. So I guess, you know, we can count on each other to uphold this invocation and not allow evil to become rampant the way it did in Germany, the way it did in Japan, and as DK tells us, yes, in Italy, but to a much lesser extent. Let's inwardly resolve that we will carry on our responsibility until we are in safer waters and have passed through the rapids. Now, you know, we did have quite a good meeting And it's not the happiest thing to have to repeat everything and know you're going to leave things out, what can you do? But I'll try to remember the high points. I did begin with, it is meeting number 86, and starting on 494, these days we barely cover more than a page. And I gave a little segue, which I think maybe was important. It says, there is a problem here. The whole problem is one concerning our planetary logos. A great deity, let us remember, that has, on a cosmic level, a problem with personality, and is going through all of that lengthy purgation on a cosmic level that human beings go through on the individual level between the first and second initiation. Yeah, it is toward the second cosmic initiation that this logos is tending, and is presently undergoing a kind of fourth initiation of a lesser kind. Maybe there are 7 of those lesser initiations. We look at page 384 in A Treatise on Cosmic Fire, and we find something there to interpret. And just the way our planetary logos is undergoing a fourth and rending lesser initiation through our planetary scheme, and here we can see it. Or rather, our planetary chain. That's what I meant to say. Here, the planetary logos as a whole is undergoing a kind of fourth lesser initiation through our planetary chain. So, from another perspective, the solar logos, through our planetary scheme, is undergoing a kind of fourth or lesser initiation. They're both about halfway through their development. And if we believe the Hindu chronology, as Madame Blavatsky says we should, there's a long time in the making. Maybe not only millions of years for the solar logos, but even remarkably, if true, and if the subjective aspects of development are taken into consideration, trillions of years. So the whole problem is one concerning our planetary logos. It might be said, in order to make our theme comprehensible to you, I mean, DK certainly does not inflate and exaggerate our ability to understand. He knows what we can understand and not, by and large. And to a great extent, our understanding is fallible and wanting. But making this evolutionary process from the standpoint of the ordinary human being understandable is the making of our non-sacred planet, our Earth, responsive to cosmic impacts, thus bringing more interrelated and inner integration into the logoic body. Well, I would say interrelationship. I wonder if this is, sometimes there are mistakes in the CD-ROM, but presumably that's the way it is. a more interrelated and inner integration into the logoic body of expression. So an integration process is at work within our planetary logos, and there is greater relationship between the entire logos and his instrument of expression and the other planetary logo. Now, from the cosmic perspective, our planetary logos, like the other planetary logo, is related to the 7 stars of the Great Bear, or at least one of the 7 stars. In the morning, I couldn't quite remember what the second star was. It's Mizar, if that's the way it's pronounced. Mizar. These are largely Arabic names. So and I didn't do this. I didn't go to Google and look for the Big Dipper. We can call it that. And it's in the Wikipedia. And there it is. And that would have been the easy way to find out. Al-Qaid, first ray, Mizar, second ray, Alioth, third ray, out of alignment, actually. Megrez, fourth ray, Dubay, fifth ray, Merak, sixth ray, and Fegda, seventh ray. At least this seems to be the way that they are represented in Richard Hinckley Allen's very encyclopedic book. I think it's called Star Lore or something like that. He really has collected the different traditions. And let us say that each of the planetary logoi, depending upon its level of evolution, is related to one or other of these stars. Now, let's say that our planetary logos was passing through his first initiation. He still is an initiate of the first degree. And of course, this would apply as well to our solar logos. But for our planetary logos, the third star, Alioth, would promote the development of the third ray personality. But our planetary logos is no longer working on the development of its third ray personality. That has been done, and it's working on the accommodation of that third ray personality to its second ray soul. The real development now is in the expression, the strengthening of the expression of its second ray soul. And maybe there are changes according to the law of mutation, changes in the star of the Great Bear to which our logos is related. And since the second ray soul is the immediate project, the emergence of that soul, Mizar, the second ray star, there's another visual double there. It's called Alcor, but it's not really part of the asterism of the Big Dipper here. Maybe Mizar has taken over in terms of its expression in relation to our planetary logos. So maybe a new alliance becomes more important than the Alioth alliance. And later in our solar system, as we reach the point when the first ray monad of our planetary logos begins to emerge, not for a while yet, I would say. It's presently occultly ineffective or non-effective. Then perhaps the major orientation will be Al-Qaid, the first ray star, and also called Bennett Nash. Certainly in the next solar system, which will be a first ray solar system. Our solar logos will, I think, have a first ray personality. The monadic ray of our planetary logos, the first ray, will emerge. Because ideally, our solar logos will take the fifth initiation, cosmically considered, at the end or toward the end of our present solar system. But maybe not. But if it does, Earth will have to have had emerge its first ray monad to the degree that that monad will stimulate the base of the spine, which the entire Earth scheme is in relation to the solar logos. And that base of the spine is carrying the first ray of will, just the way the first ray of purpose is carried by the solar logos. So just as there is uncertainty regarding how much a human being will accomplish in a given cycle, so there is even uncertainty for the solar logos. But the Earth is needed because it represents the base of the spine, and because the base of the spine is the operative chakra at the fifth initiation. The Earth is needed, and it's needed in its first ray aspect. And the other planetary logoi, they will, maybe according to the law of mutation, align first with one of the stars of the Great Bear according to their personality ray, and then another according to their soul ray, and yet another according to their monadic ray. Now, this is a solar system in which most prominently the soul rays of the planetary logoi are expressing. In the sacred planets, the monadic ray can be felt as occultly effective and not occultly non-effective as it is in the non-sacred planets like our Earth. So, all kinds of relationships exist here, and they all have their laws. They all are, well, like triangles in rotation. First, the personality ray is dominant, the dominant chakra in a triangle. And then comes the soul ray sign, that becomes dominant. And then finally the sign associated with the monadic ray becomes dominant. Or, simply put, in another way, first we have the dominance of the personality ray, then the dominance of the soul ray, then finally, and not yet, in case of the Earth, the dominance of the monadic ray. Right now, we're trying to bring our planetary soul ray into expression, and the reappearance of the Christ is part of that. So our great goal is to help make our non-sacred planet, the Earth, responsive to cosmic impacts. I've just talked about those, particularly in relation to the Great Bear, but also the Syrian cosmic impact is very important. And every time a star comes into relationship with our particular star and its system, we have kind of a cosmic impact. So thus bringing greater interrelationship and integration into the logoic body of expression. Maybe we might say, in fact, oh no, that wouldn't be right. In fact, both logoi would be more fully integrated and more fully interrelated. The planetary logos within itself would be more fully integrated and then more related to other planetary logoi, and the solar logos within itself would be more fully integrated and probably in relation to other stars, more interrelated. It has to relate to such stars as Sirius and Procyon and Altair in the Eagle, and the Alpha and Beta Centauri, and some others, you know, depending on what hypothesis is correct. So this would apply, applying to both kinds of logoi, planetary and solar logoic. And I'll try to keep that kind of purple so we can distinguish my comments. There are other purposes than to become a sacred planet. And you know, that's millions of years ahead. We still have to decide whether whether in the fifth round and the judgment day, where a kind of sacredness may occur, whether we're talking about a round that is a chain round within the Earth chain, or whether we are speaking of a scheme round. Well, you know, maybe I can even, you know, go back here, not just involving the Earth chain, but the entire Earth scheme 7 times around. I think it's not quite so simple as a strictly sequential rounding. I think just the way different chakras in different triangles in our own system are stimulated at different times, so it would be the case for the chains, these, within a planetary scheme. In other words, here is the Mercury chain. Well, there is not nothing going on there. Something's going on. And here's the Mars chain, the 6th. Something's going on. It's not just a total blank in terms of planetary activity. So there's still much to learn about the activation of these various wheels, these various chakras. Globes are chakras, chains are chakras, and in the economy of the solar logos, planetary schemes are chakras. And solar systems are chakras in stellar combinations within a cosmic logos. And even cosmic logoi, which are like asterisms, they express through kind of constellations, they too are chakras, you know. So the chakric systems mount up very high. So there are other purposes, yes, but it's only after the third initiation that man begins to comprehend them. And I would just say that Sirius does not become active in its characteristic way for the individual man until the third initiation is taken. There's such a light coming from Sirius. It's the brilliant star of sensitivity. And only when man becomes initially glorified at the third initiation does the true Sirian energy begin to be occultly effective within his consciousness and within his energy system. So Sirius may have some effects. I mean, you know, there are those people who say you can even be bitten by a dog under Sirius. It's not a very esoteric manifestation of the energy, but it is related. And then, of course, there's the whole progressive glorification that the initiatory regime gives you as you progress from illumination to illumination. So, you know, eventually man will become responsive to the stellar level once the monadic level of identification occurs. He has taken the first solar initiation, which is the third, and more he can respond to the stars because the sun also is a star. I think, you know, there may have been a few things left out, but that was my segue, and quite a long segue at that. Now, getting into a little bit of the work we did this morning, with my earnest hope that this particular program is not 12 seconds long. Well, you know, it's impossible to do it exactly as you did it. So always new things will be included and some things left out. This is not particularly a course on astrology, but a course more on astrological triangles, whether pure triangles like 3 planets or mixed triangles like a zodiacal sign and 2 planets, or 2 zodiacal signs and 1 planet, or another pure type 3 zodiacal signs. And on we can go, mixing or keeping the pure form on the horizontal level. Now, we've been working with the triangle that we call Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, or, you know, moving forward in the astrological mode and beginning with Aquarius because it is the coming sign. We could say Aquarius, Gemini, Libra, and that would fit quite well with the decanate rulers that appear every 720 years or so in the lesser equinoctial cycle of Aquarius. In other words, this may be an age which lasts roughly 2,500 years. I think the overlap periods between the previous age and the coming age are taken into consideration when the figure 2,500 is used. But then there is the 25,000 year age of Aquarius. It's a Platonic year. And there will be the normal equinoctial ages, 12 of them, going to make that great Platonic year. So again, you will not have 720-year periods. You will have periods lasting 2,500 years, approximately, or maybe more exactly, without overlaps, 2,160 years. And Gemini, Aquarius will last that long. And then some intervening signs, and then Gemini will come in at either a 2,500 year overlapping, a period with overlaps, or 2,160 years, and then eventually Libra at the same duration. Now, we just don't know much about that great Platonic year ruled by Aquarius, but it's coming, and DK tells us that, okay, your science cannot detect the beginning of it, but it's happening. Now, these three constellations, cyclically and eternally, well, certainly cyclically, and what does he mean by eternally? Because, you know, there are other systems in which Aquarius, Gemini, Libra do not exist. And is it so in every universe? Does eternity or eternality carry from universe to universe, perhaps? So maybe there's a special meaning for the word eternally. It has been said to be related to cycles and not to forever and forever. There are two prominent definitions of the word eternal. But at least as a non-specific word, we can talk about it as appearing very frequently in the expression of these three constellations, and of course other triplicities will also have their cyclic and eternal expressions. Excuse me. So these three constellations, cyclically and eternally, leading the eternal pilgrim, that's what we are. And why are we eternal? We are always, whatever universe it may be, eventually the monad, following a path of learning, of involution, and finally of return. And with that return to the more inclusive source, we redeem and we save. So the eternal pilgrim, it's difficult for me because there is a span in which the pilgrim, or in relation to which the pilgrim travels into great depths of matter and then returns. But to make it eternal, at least in the way I've been considering the word eternal, it would have to happen in universe after universe, and we would have to be monads on a pilgrimage in each universe. But the question of whether we existed as differentiable monads at the very height of the universe, or whether that great homogeneity we call a universal logos began to self-divide, and thus the many monads were created. Those two possibilities have to be evaluated. I tend to think that there is no real division between monads, and all monads are essentially the universal logos, which is essentially the absolute deity transcending any universe, the super universal deity, which is essentially itself the absoluteness or the absolute. So the three constellations leading us at this point, considering ourselves to be the eternal pilgrim on a pilgrimage into the depths of matter from the previous solar system, leading the eternal pilgrim along the path of mental unfoldment, because these three have a lot to do with mental unfoldment, produce in him the final stage of mental evolution upon the path of initiation. Now, what is that final stage? We can, let's see if I can find it, you know. I think I may have to go to a different, well, I think maybe this will be okay. What are the stages of mind that can bring about unfoldment? Maybe I should even go to a bigger map, the map on page 344. Down here, we certainly have the lower concrete mind. It can be considered as ruled by Mars, by Saturn, even the lowest aspect of Mercury can there be found. And then the higher three subplanes, two of which can be called higher mind or son of mind, ruled very much by Venus. Actually, the very first subplane is ruled by Venus as well, except that it is the lowest aspect of the triad and has in connection with it, again, Saturn and maybe Uranus. So that's the son of mind. Son of mind, excuse me, will be the lower two, subplane 2 and 3, and maybe something of subplane number 1, except it's also called abstract mind. And then we get into, I'm going to try to, something we call the pure reason, and that is associated with the monastic permanent atom. But as we move on to the Buddhic plane, we find pure reason in this area, the area of divine vision and the area of intuition, which we call the transcendental mind. But it's also the mind of the higher type of pure reason. And then we move on to the atmic plane, and eventually we find what is called nirvanic mind, or the mind that is deeply associated with the enactment of the law, the whole atomic plane is a very high level of mind because it's the numbers are correct. Third from the top, 1, 2, 3, and 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 from the bottom. And when I say, top and bottom, we're just talking about vibratory differentiation. It has nothing to do with the actual layout of things. And then eventually we'll be dealing with something we might call cosmic mind, beyond the cosmic etheric physical plane and beyond the cosmic astral plane, but indeed located on the cosmic mental plane, 4 cosmic subplanes below and 3 above. Things change a little bit there, but I think the analogy probably does hold.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, well, we are continuing. I had to take a little break there, but there are quite a number of levels of the mind. Sometimes we talk about 3 minds uniting, and sometimes 5 minds uniting. And when we say 3 minds unite, we can mean, for instance, concrete mind. Let's see if I go here. Concrete mind, son of mind, and abstract mind. Or we can mean the concrete mind, the abstract mind, and the atomic mind. Those would be 3 minds as well. The master's mind, I think, is found quite a bit on what we would call Atma. But there are 5 minds, really, and the concrete mind, lower 4 subplanes, higher mind, or son of mind, subplanes 2 and 3 of the mental plane, abstract mind, and that is found on the highest level of the mental plane. And then there is the transcendental mind, which is the intuition, and the mind of pure reason as well. And then would come the atmic mind, or nirvanic mind, the mind of the law, and that would be the 5th. But of course, we have to take into consideration the 6th level as well. Now, maybe even 7, because from a certain point of view, Leo, bringing in the 5th ray, is a mental indicator, and the logoic plane would have the reflection of cosmic mind on it. Cosmic mind would come from the concrete and causal levels of the cosmic mental plane. So there is some variation in this question of the uniting of minds, and eventually they must become so seamless that you can travel from one to the other without that jolt that comes from shifting gears. Okay. And illumination will follow. Now, as we tread the path of initiation, the light gets stronger and stronger. The path of initiation is ruled in a way very much by the 5th ray. It's always involved in some way in the initiatory process, and especially once we reach the first solar initiation or the third planetary initiation, illumination comes and the light grows stronger and stronger as we ascend. Now, we can't really, I mean, how high can we speak of initiations? We DK rites of the 8th and 9th initiation, but they are already transitional. As a matter of fact, the 8th initiation is called the initiation of transition, and it involves 4 rays of attribute, and the 9th initiation involves 3 rays of aspect, and is a kind of a temporary repudiation of the cosmic physical plane. Whereas it seems to me there's kind of a back and forth quality about that figure 8 to the astral plane, cosmic astral, then back down to the cosmic physical, to the cosmic astral, and back down again. So illumination, the term applied to that final stage, is a synthesis of instinct, intellect, and intuition. But what is the final stage? Excuse me. Sorry. Okay. I hesitate to turn this thing off, lest suddenly we discover that I haven't been recording, and my second attempt would be a failure here too. But what is this final stage? Is it the 4th degree? Because there is a climactic degree of finality about the 4th degree. It pretty well ejects a man from the 4th kingdom of nature. Not entirely. He still is a man, woman, but I say manus, man. He still is mankind, humanity, when he takes the 5th initiation, but there is an ejection process which occurs. Basically, humanity as a kingdom throws him out, and that, he is oftentimes despised and rejected. I'm remembering a song from the Messiah, based on scripture, that was that. He was despised, and rejected. But that's to prepare him for being a true and complete member of the 5th kingdom of nature, and eventually right on the borderland of the 6th kingdom of planetary lives. So what is that final stage? Is it the 4th degree? No, not entirely, although there is much finality there and a direct contact with the monad. But in fact, maybe the 5th degree can be considered final. And it's not final in terms of the initiations we can conceive. It's the first Syrian initiation and the 3rd solar initiation. It's not final, but in terms of being a member of the human kingdom, it is final. And there's a great illumination that occurs there, and it's called revelation, because this is the initiation of revelation. And what is being revealed at that 5th degree is a clear vision of the 7 or now 9 cosmic paths. They come into focus, and one begins to have an accurate idea of which of the cosmic paths on the way of higher evolution should be trodden. We may have little hints or wisps of thought now about what cosmic path we may be traveling, and we may be correct and probably more often incorrect, but by the time of this great revelation of light, by the time the 7 or now 9 cosmic paths light up and we see which way they lead, we'll have a much more accurate vision, and our illumination will be very, very powerful. So just to bear in mind that with every initiatory ascent, illumination increases. Okay. Now, we can say that the sequence of Gemini, Libra, Aquarius leads to a kind of illumination, which finally is even beyond the intuition. As I say, every step on the initiatory ladder is an enhanced illumination. And so finally, we come to that climactic illumination of revelation. But we cannot say that there is not even a grander illumination at the 6th initiation of ascension, or at the 7th initiation, which the Christ and the Buddha are in process of undergoing. It's a lengthier process. And so the increase of light is constant. And, it is these 3 constellations that we are presently studying, actually. Gemini is more in the realm of what the human being, as a member of the 4th kingdom of nature, can accomplish. When it comes to Libra, we're in the realm more of mastership. And when it comes to Aquarius, although it has application to all initiations from the 2nd onward, not so much at the 1st initiation, it can begin to bring in cosmic levels of mind, which we can call the universal mind. I'll get to that. Okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
So first, what DK says about Gemini, it's very related to humanity. It's one of the signs under which humanity was individualized, along with Leo and Cancer. Let's see here. Gemini expresses the relation of the pairs of opposites, soul and personality, basically, but there are many pairs of opposites, of course. Expresses the relation of the pairs of opposites as they swing the man into activity and evoke his mental perception. When we reach the point of entering the hall of learning, the higher of the pairs of opposites, God immanent, begins to appear. In the hall of ignorance, it does not. There may be some vague reaching outward to an unknown transcendental God, but the whole idea of God within, in the hall of ignorance, is not appreciated. So all the counterpoles, between the soul and personality, they do evoke a mental perception, that kind of friction, that kind of exchange going on between the ever clarifying higher self and the personality of which one is aware, one thinking of oneself as the personality mostly, but increasingly also as the higher self. Now, of course, Gemini doesn't only have an application to the human level. It is also a great constellational lord. and is considered the head of the cosmic Christ. One of my colleagues says because Orion has no head, and Orion can be considered a great cosmic Christ without a head, and Gemini, located in space proximate to Orion, provides that head. Well, that is the speculation on his part, but certainly a very thoughtful one. So he goes on, DK goes on, that with the aid of the ruling planets, Mercury and Venus, Mercury exoteric, Venus esoteric, the mind begins to function. And when the esoteric planet comes into expression, that's Venus, comes into expression and transmitting potency, the messenger and the angel exchange their understanding. Now, when it comes to Gemini, always exchange is operating. From a certain point of view, Venus rides above Mercury when Mercury represents the concrete mind, and Venus represents the higher mind or the soul mind. From another point of view, excuse me, both Mercury and Venus can represent the sun of mind and be more or less on the same level. And from still another and higher point of view, Mercury, as the transcendental mind, can ride above Venus, which represents the simply the higher mind, or solar angelic mind. Usually, for our purposes, Venus is the planet to which we are reaching as we, the thinker, the logic-oriented, reasoning human being using the human mind, reach out for soul infusion via Venus of that mind. So the messenger, the mind begins to function, and when the esoteric planet Venus comes into expression and transmitting potency, the messenger and the angel exchange their understanding. And that's always going on. With Gemini, there is always an exchange. We can look at it simply as higher and lower self, and the higher perspective becomes aware of what's going on within the lower expression, and the lower expression, importantly, becomes aware of that which the solar angel is attempting to send forth to infuse the lower with its own higher expression. Alice Bailey puts in here a note: Venus and the divine Manasaputras are closely connected, and the Manasaputras are the mind-born sons of Brahma. So this is telling us something about the emanation, to be mind-born, and they are represented by Venus, these sons of Brahma. So I've noticed that when Mercury and Venus they're never very far apart. I think Venus can be a maximum of 47 degrees about on either side of the sun, and Mercury only about 30 degrees or 28 something on either side of the sun, and you'll never get a full square out of them, but you can get a conjunction, maybe two. You can get a sextile from them, but when they are in conjunction, it's very propitious for the illumination of the mind, both in terms of what the solar angel can impart and in terms of the intuition which can be imparted by a higher form of Mercury, a purely reasonable form of Mercury. And some artistic ability or some eloquence in expression or some illumined thought and speech oftentimes accompanies that conjunction of Venus and Mercury. So, we ask ourselves in our own case, are the messenger and the angel exchanging their understanding? Well, we, humanity, in a way, are the messenger, and we have the angel above us, above, vibratorily above. And are we aware of this interplay between the pairs of opposites, an interplay which is always associated with Gemini? And yet, from the point of view of mental development, Gemini represents the first step into a higher type of mentality that is not simply concrete. If you want something simply concrete, we look at the concrete mind, we look at Mars, which rules the concrete mind, we look at Saturn, which in one of its modes of expression rules the concrete mind, and we look at Mercury too, which in one of its modes of expression rules the concrete mind. So Gemini is our first step into the ascent of real spiritual mental ability. Then we come to Libra in order, ruled by Venus importantly, but also by Uranus. Libra expresses the point of balance achieved prior to a secondary activity and the period of assimilation by the mind of past experience. Libra looks in two directions. Now, we oftentimes say that of Gemini and associate it with the Roman god Janus. But Libra, too, is at a point of evaluation and looks backward toward towards the accumulations of the past and the values of the past, and looks forward to the potential values of further spiritual development, and then makes a decision. So the secondary activity, I think, can be considered a movement forward into Scorpio, towards greater illumination, and thence towards Capricorn, where the soul will be seen as triumphant at the third degree. So Libra stands at the hub, looks in two directions, evaluates, and decides which way it will go. To move forward into Scorpio requires a considerable decision. To backslide into the materialistic aspect of Virgo, well, maybe if you sit on the fence too long, you will backslide. So these processes, when successfully carried forward, evoke the intuition eventually when we reach Sagittarius. Excuse me. And this brings into activity what is called supermind. It's the top of the Brahmic fivefoldness. Brahma is fivefold from the Atmic plane on down. Atma, Buddhi, Manas, Astral, Etheric, Physical, five. And the supermind rests on top of the Brahmic pentagram. And we have, what shall we call it? The superhuman development on the Buddhic and Atmic planes. So supermind we recognize as existing here. And here is the atmic plane, the plane of supermind. It's ruled by Saturn. Its color is the third ray color green. It is the yoga of knowledge, Jnana Shakti, or the force of mind, as it is called. Strangely, it is the water plane, but that is difficult to understand, I think.
This conference will now be recorded.
Anyway, let us say that maybe you're getting that sound that says this conference will now be recorded or this conference is no longer recorded. So I'm sorry for the interruption if that is the case. It's something new with GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar. Anyway, just a little distraction. The atmic plane is definitely associated with supermind, and the mind of the master can be found focused in what we call supermind. It has transcended the interplay between the pairs of opposites. It has transcended the transcendental mind per se and the concrete mind, although it can use them, and now is focused in the supermind. Okay, which is Libran in nature, and maybe it's called super because it is the world of super human evolution, which has been entered as the normal point of tension. So supermind is called into activity. It understands how the law works, it understands karma. It has what the siddhi, or the power, called all knowledge, which we find on the third subplane of the atmic plane. And it's the response, it says here, of the illumined mind to the mind of God. Now, what is the mind of God? Where is that found? What God? Is it the solar logos? If it is, it's cosmic. And if it's the planetary logos, I would say the logoic plane is involved in it, and also even the monadic plane, will, wisdom, and activity, or we might say will, love, and intelligence. So the intuition in its first phase precedes the emergence of supermind, which is nirvanic mind, which seems to be the type of mind which the Buddha possessed, understanding the law so very, very well. The intuition is called the transcendental mind, and, well, the mind of God, of course, it depends on which God. The atmic plane is kind of a lower extension of the mind of God. So far we have Gemini, which is a more a type of human interplay in the hall of learning and continuously between the higher mind and the lower mind, between the higher of the pairs of opposites and the lower. And then we have Libra, which is supermind, the mind of a master under Saturn. It's still a mind associated with the human kingdom, but it's on the verge of breaking into something greater. And accessibility to universal mind, I think, begins on the 6th level, or monadic plane, sometimes the 2nd level, counting from above, and continuing on to the 1st level, the logoic plane. And this appears to be ruled by Aquarius. Now, Aquarius, of course, has rulership over many things. And as I said, it's active at all initiations from the 2nd through the 5th. Most people take their 5th initiation in Aquarius, and maybe there's something going on at the 7th initiation, which involves Aquarius, because it is the opposite of Leo, which seems to rule the logoic plane, where the 7th initiation is taken. I mean, you know, these are just intellectual concepts to us, but and far beyond anything we can make real to ourselves experientially. Aquarius expresses the activity of mind which has been initiated into the purposes of universal mind. Now, the lowest level of universal mind, to me at least, is the supermind. But if I want to carry universal mind higher, I would say that both the monadic plane and the logoic plane have aspects of universal mind, and it is a cosmic factor coming from the cosmic mental plane. The word universe is interesting. You know, I've been noting how words slip into the common parlance. And so many of the journalists and reporters reporting on the election talked about universes. They didn't mean the grand totality of stars and galaxies. They meant something else. They meant a various types of wholeness. So this universe, that universe, this collection, that collection. The term must have been used, I don't know, maybe 7 times while I was watching the returns, and I've never noticed that before. So this particular term is creeping into the thought habits of intelligent people and also into their speech. So universal mind, in other words, our solar system then, from a certain perspective, is a universe. It's a united whole. And galaxies are universes. And finally, the grand totality of all stars and starry systems, at least externally, is also a universe. One of the final universes. When I say final, I mean final in terms of its scope. There have been limitless universes appearing cyclically, apparently, according to the Great Breath, and limitless to come. Well, there are problems there philosophically, how we even reach any universe in a linear manner. Do we or do we not? But that is another issue. So Aquarius expresses the universal mind, which is cosmic mind, but it comes all the way down to the soul level. It is the sign which brings the soul. You know, it's connected with Leo, and Leo is the great supporter of the sunflower, which is the egoic lotus, causal body. It is the sign which brings the soul into active cooperation with the inner plan of God, and this we call service. This is this active cooperation with the inner plan of God is service. It's a beautiful definition. So, active cooperation with the inner God, inner plan of, is service. Maybe that's one really worth remembering. So inner is suggesting the not just the outer expression of the plan, but where it's really conceived by the custodians of the plan. And then which God are we talking about? Which God is being referenced? The planetary logos or the solar logos in this case? Maybe it is the solar logos, whose connection with the sign Leo is very strong. We know the sun rules Leo. So the connection with the solar logos is very strong in Leo. And since Aquarius is the opposite sign, even though there is in conventional astrology a detriment between Aquarius and the sun, in a higher sense, it can be associated as a duad with Leo. And so will, I think, fit in terms of the seventh initiation, which has a strong Leonian component. There are other ways of looking at initiation. Sixth initiation, well, fifth initiation, Leo, yes. Sixth, Libra. Seventh initiation, Gemini, Leo, Aquarius, I would say. Okay, now why did I say Libra for the sixth, the great decision? Libra, the sign of decision. So Aquarius is connected with the inspiration of cosmic mind, universal mind, the mind of the solar logos, which descends into the planets via Shambhala and hierarchy and makes its way into what we call the soul. And I think we have, is the sign, yeah, it is the sign which brings the soul into active cooperation with the plan of God. Now, the soul can be very busy expressing its own content. And in that case, as DK has told us, it will not be used, that individual will not be used in the great plan, which is the reappearance of the Christ. It will be involved in its own self-expression, which is interestingly also Leonian. So in all of this, three aspects of mind: Gemini, more associated with the human and the human being learning about the pairs of opposites; Libra with the superhuman and the mind of the master on the atomic plane; and Aquarius associated with the higher two planes and with the cosmic mental plane, which we could call, in one respect, universal mind, if we say that the system of a solar logos is his own little universe. In any case, the development of mind is under the sway of these three signs, this particular triangle. And when we have this triangle or aspects of it active in our chart, we have to see in what way mind may be developing. Some of us born back in the 40s had a lot of emphasis going on in the air signs because Saturn and Uranus were in Gemini and Neptune was in Libra. And then it just depends on what you had going on in Aquarius. Maybe I have some what you call personal planets in Aquarius, so that particular triangle is significant to me, and I have to examine how the mind is developing. So all of this presentation has to do with a movement of the human mind as it becomes increasingly divine. What are described here are the aspects of the unfoldment of the human mind as it becomes increasingly divine. And we're moving from the illumined mind, which can be achieved under Gemini, the mind held steady in the light. And Leo certainly helps with that at the transfiguration, when we have enlightenment or satori, depending on what tradition you're evoking. Illumination, enlightenment, satori, those are terms used for the waxing bright of the mind and of the whole energy system, and generally of the mind held steady in the light. So from the illumined mind to the supermind, which uses the third ray to see the great outlines of mental connections, to the universal mind, which has cosmic origins. So that was pretty well where I left off. I realized that I have left out certain things, but it would take us to Science of Triangles number 87, it appears. And we've made progress of one page. All right. But then again, it's not the quantity, it's the depth of what one studies, and we will resume in the PM. So far we have in the AM, and maybe this will be 6 p.m. GMT. Yeah, I think that that's enough to at least have an attempt to have recapped what was lost this morning. Questions came up about the Corpus Christi, the body of Christ, and the person who asked the question said it was associated with the ascension of the Christ. So that would have been the 6th initiation, oftentimes called the ascension. And that ascension has to do with focalizing the awareness within the monad. And the factor of oneness, which can be related to Gemini, I serve myself, I serve my brother, and I serve the one. That's the progression within Gemini. A great sign of service, and especially through the etheric body. A lot of service will be offered through the etheric body via Gemini and Aquarius during the age of Aquarius. So I thought at first that the Corpus Christi had represented the mind as it is in Christ, and the service activity as it is in Christ. And I was trying to say that by the time we reach the 3rd initiation, in which the soul has the majority position, we are really beginning to develop the mind as it is in Christ. And a certain illumination comes along with that reaching of the third degree. But basically, if the Corpus Christi, and he knows better than I, is associated with the ascension, then the ascension is connected with at least begins at the 6th degree and continues until one sits at the right hand of the Father, and that would be on the logoic plane, where in Shambhala, where the Buddha and the Christ are both presently focused in a lengthy seventh degree process. Later, they'll move on to the eighth initiation and the beginning of work upon the cosmic astral plane, which some must cross to reach their destination on the cosmic mental plane, and for others, their destination is upon the cosmic astral plane. It was also, I don't have those words in front of me right now, but I'm remembering the question of the Earth as the base of the spine within the solar logos. And then there was a discussion about alignment with the center of the galaxy. Now, technically, we know that is occurring in 26 or 27 of Sagittarius, but in terms of a realistic alignment of the Earth with such a remote center, it doesn't yet exist on a practical level. At least that's what I suggested to the person who was wondering about that alignment. And hierarchy itself is within the Earth, and the Earth within the Sun system, and the Sun system within a cosmic logoic system, and a cosmic logoic system within an unknown supercosmic system we call the one about whom naught may be said. And, that's just the beginning within our arm of the galaxy. We are by no means, as a planet, relating to the center of our galaxy, but eventually that will be a possibility. We have to remember that even to the solar logos, there are those entities to which that solar logos stands as a crystal. So as glorious as our solar logos seems to be, according to analogy, it represents a rather low mineral form, though perhaps a beautiful mineral form. I'm trying to, yes, it was also suggested, I asked the question, what do you make out of the progression from Libra through Scorpio to Sagittarius? Various answers were offered, and I am failing to remember all of them. One answer was short, so it was easier to remember, and it had to do with the second initiation. At the second initiation, Venus, Jupiter, and Neptune are all active, and Libra gives us Venus. There is an evaluation occurring and a decision to be made. One retreats into a kind of materialism which Virgo can represent, let matter reign, or there is a decision which is more brave and goes into the other of the M signs. Virgo and Scorpio are the M signs. And if we go from the balance of mind and emotion, a balance of the pairs of opposites, of God within and the form through which God works, if we make a decision which favors the higher of the pairs of opposites, we go forward towards a great battle in Scorpio, where we rise by kneeling. And this, would be a progression planetarily from Mercury, or from let's see, from Venus to Mercury. We would enter that field where the light of day shines forth after the Hydra wilts because it cannot breathe the air of the good, the beautiful, and the true. It cannot withstand the vision that is offered from that particular level. So, you know, a number of thoughts were offered. I came up with a summary finally that we make our decision in Libra, which way we shall go, whether counterclockwise, which is natural zodiacal progression, or clockwise, which is actually the reversed order, and it is the direction that personalities tend to take. Then into the great battle, where the mind is used in two different ways to hold the emotions in check, to see what they're doing, and also to intuitively reveal what is transpiring. The sign Scorpio is strongly identified with the second initiation. And, you know, the peace of Libra is also associated with the second initiation. And finally, we reach the condition not only of the fighter with duality, the warring disciple who seeks to conquer the lower of the pairs of opposites by the higher, but we enter the sign of the one-pointed disciple in Sagittarius. Now, that is what the Tibetan offers regarding Sagittarius, association with both the first ray and the second ray. But the energy which is expended in battle has to be saved because the battle is won, and thus the individual candidate is driven along one-pointedly towards the base of the mountain of initiation. The one-pointed disciple, emotional at first and fundamentalistic, we might say, and even fanatical in Sagittarius, becomes broad thinking and is led towards the higher mind built around the monastic permanent atom eventually. And there are two places in the book where it seems that Sagittarius is given association with an initiation, and it is with both the first and second initiation. But this particular combination of energies, well, you know, we could, I didn't say this morning, but we could relate them to chakras as well. Libra to the sacral center, interestingly, because it is ruled by Uranus, which rules the sacral center. Scorpio to the solar plexus. Of course, in a way, it rules all the chakras below the diaphragm, but finally to the swamps of Lerna, where the Hydra is found. It's particularly the astral plane, and the astral plane is associated with the solar plexus, and Scorpio is ruled doubly by Mars and also by Pluto at first, and those planets represent the astral plane. Mars, the place which is Hades, which is really the astral plane. It's not the hell of the Christians. So there is a Martian connection with Hades or the solar plexus, and a Plutonic connection because the Lord of the underworld lives there. But that is concerning the battles for the second initiation. And we want to transcend those, maybe, before we can really move on into one-pointed discipleship, which speedily drives forward to the base of the mountain of initiation. So we're dealing very much with that period of time around the second initiation. And I asked, what does this triangle mean to you? And the triangle means precisely that we are functioning in relation to the second initiation through these three signs and become at last from the one who is trying to make the decision, which way do I go, to the fighter, to the speedy pilgrim, moving forward rapidly along the path one pointedly until the Capricornian task of achieving initiation is offered. And the reason I did that, I tried to offer the opportunity for people to think of different triangles in relation to their life and to utilize those triangles interpretively so that they would get an idea of how the triangles really worked.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, but I was waiting for you to come and tell me.
You asked how long, and I said about an hour. You said that that's good, and now 2 hours.
I lost track of time here, but you want me to come right now, right?
This conference will now be recorded.
Kind of looks like I missed another meeting because I got so involved in this, but my wife reminded me I'm due in another meeting, but we're almost finished here, and I will continue in a little while.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Friends, I got a little bit interrupted there before I was able to say goodbye. Other duties calling. So we have, well, we're almost finished with this section. Maybe another 5 pages, maybe another few programs, and then we will look up other references having to do with various kinds of triangles, and we'll continue with our work. So I want to wish you all many blessings, lots of love, and from our communications group, which tries to keep the ageless wisdom before you in a manner that will help with assimilation. So I think that's going to be it. And this time I really sincerely hope that we have a recording for you. Otherwise, I will have been talking all day with nothing to show for it. So many blessings and lots of love, and we'll see you later in just a little while. Well, that won't apply to you, but we're continuing with our triangles work at 6 o'clock GMT, another couple of hours or so. We'll see you now, and all the very best. Bye-bye for the moment.